Slowhands Rock Talk Show.
I think it probably was a Shakin' Stevens. I think it might have been Green Door by Shakin' Stevens.
Right, okay.
It was Love Bites with the Buzzcocks.
Right.
And I actually got a paper round so I could afford it.
Yeah.
So I remember hearing stuff like Blockbuster with a Sweet when I was 7, and my dad bought it for me.
Yeah.
And then on my birthday, Ever Fallen in Love with Someone You Shouldn't Have came out.
Right.
And I couldn't afford that, but a fellow I went to school with had discovered heavy metal and he didn't like punk anymore. Mm-hmm. A week after he bought that single, he sold it to me for 25p. And then I really wanted to get the album, and I knew that the album was coming out.
Yep.
So I went down to McMachen's in Ballyclare, which was a newsagent's, and asked them could I deliver papers on a Sunday. And I did the job. And that then there was a record shop in Ballyclare called Burt McCormack's Records and Tapes.
Yep.
And they got it in. And that was the first record I actually went into a shop with and handed over my money with. Yeah.
So one of the first gigs I went to, weirdly, and around the similar time, was Gary Newman. I went to see Gary Newman, and that was one of those things where I remember like being really young, and I went with a friend, and it kind of just blew our minds. I don't know why. I'm trying to think of why we went. I clearly remember going, but it wasn't even like I was a big fan. So whether someone gave us the tickets, but
maybe just the experience of it all.
Oh yeah, and the volume. Yeah, the volume. But the first sort of concert I went to where I was really excited was Madness down at the Hammersmith would have been Hammersmith Odeon maybe, and this is like brilliant, right? This shows the difference in time, right? So my older brother, I was a bit of within the family. I was a bit of I was the mistake. There's a big gap between me and my older brother. It's like 13 years, right? And I've got 2 sisters in between, so I was the mistake, right? And anyway, so my older brother, he's living down in London, and for my birthday, he bought tickets to go and see Madness. My mum and dad put me on a bus in Derby, right? And just went, yeah, there you go. My brother was meant to meet me in London to get off the bus. He'd gone to the wrong bus station, right? And I'm thinking, like, in this day and age, you wouldn't put like a 10-year-old on the bus and just go, yeah, enjoy yourself, see you later. But anyway, so I remember the bus driver like just going, is anyone meeting you? And I was like, yeah, my brother's meant to be. He just wasn't there. Anyway, we did make it to the concert. He did find me eventually. Yeah, that was the Madness 7 tour, and that was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
The first one I ever went to was, I mean, it's nearly gold standard. 1982 in the RDS in Dublin, AC/DC, which would have been probably for those about to rock tour with Y&T supporting, and it was. I'd never seen it. My dad and my aunt actually took us to it. Me and the 2 brothers. So it was pretty incredible. That blows your mind. You know, the bell coming down and the cannons firing at the end. And Y&T I really loved as well. It was a great concert. You know, so definitely just seeing all those people together. I suppose it's maybe 30,000 people or whatever. So
and the first one I actually professional one was Susie and the Banshees at the Ulster Hall.
Right.
And I was 13 or 14. And it was, this is the height of the Troubles. And it was me and a guy I went to school with called Alan Kissick, and a wee lad across the road called John Whitehouse. And we had like our little kind of biker jackets, which we'd got for Christmas, and our Dennis the Menace jumpers, and our trying to be spiky. And my dad, it was his job. He told everyone on the street, because we all live in the same street in this housing estate called Erskine Park. And he says, right, I'll drop them off and I'll pick them up, because my dad was from Belfast. He kind of right? So I remember my dad and my mum sitting in the front seat. My dad was called Jimmy. Mum, oh Jesus, Jimmy, look at the state of them ones outside. Are we doing the right thing here? Look at people with Mohicans and skinheads and all this.
Yeah.
And then we said, don't drop us at the front door. You know, we were embarrassed. Like, drop us round the back. And of course, we went down the side of the Ulster Hall. There was all these punks drinking cans of cider. My mum was having a conniption fit, going, "Turn back, don't drop them off." But they dropped us off. And of course, when they dropped us off, we were absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
Because it was, we were only 14 and all these older punks were all drinking and smoking and using a lot of bad language. But then when we got into the venue and the music started, I just remember I'd never experienced a PA system like that before. So it was the Ulster Hall, which holds 2,500 people. Really, really loud PA. And Susie and the Banshees come on. And I think they opened with the Lord's Prayer, which is like a 12-minute dirge off Join Hands.
Yep.
And I remember I'd desperately tried to get my way to the front. It was the first time I'd physically heard music on my chest.
Yeah.
Bass and everything. It was so loud that it actually... And I couldn't make out the lyrics. It was just this huge, huge tidal wave of noise that nearly knocked me over.
It was a great show. I remember we were not nervous about it being recorded, but we were conscious that, you know, it was being filmed and it was MTV were doing it, and the label were quite invested in making sure it went off without any hitches. So I think it was a long day. We were in early sound checking, a lot sound checking. You know, there's cameras in places that we weren't really used to cameras being in, you know, but they were quite discreet. I think they did a really good job, and it captures the atmosphere of the show. I do remember we had the audio remixed after the show because the initial MTV mix was very, you know, guitar light, shall we say. It was classic kind of thin, you know, radio. And we got Dave Bascom to mix it, who did a fantastic job. You know, he did a really cool job. So we spent a bit of time and money getting that right afterwards. But it was good. But also as well, you sort of forget there's no phones. Yeah. Also, you could still smoke in venues, which is mad when you think on it. Absolutely mad. And the other thing as well is that, I don't know if people are aware of this now, but on stage, lights now are those LED lights. There's not that much heat off them, so you don't really sweat like you used to back in the day. Like some of the heat coming off those power cans and the way our lights were done at the time, RLD took all the colours out. So a lot of it is all just white lights. He would go into a venue and say, take all the green gels out, all the red gels out, all the blue gels. He wanted it to be harsh, like white, every light white, like hyper real nearly. So there was a lot of heat hitting the band. So I just remember being very, you know, Brixton Academy is a big old building as well, you know, but I just remember it being boiling hot.
You're wringing out your dungarees at the end of it.
Oh yeah, you wrung them out and then you had a hairdryer on them for an hour and a half.
Well, I remember I'd always really wanted to play Brixton.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, you know, there was a load of gigs because I read the music press. I read Kerrang and I read NME, Melody Maker Sounds. And you get to know the name of these venues. And there's certain ones you want to play. You know, you've heard of King Tut's Wawa Hut. Yeah. And you've heard of the venue in Edinburgh. You've heard of
Barrowlands
and all this. And then you've got the Ulster Hall in Northern. And then in London, you've got Brixton Academy, the Astoria. You've got the Town and Country Club, which is now known as a Forum.
Yeah.
So we're doing all that. And we'd already, because of Screamage, you had already done the Astoria and the Town and Country Club. And the booking agent was saying, well, the next one's Brixton Academy. It's 4,500 people. And I remember thinking that's a bit much, maybe, you know what I mean? It's a bit of a stretch because the Forum's 2,200. It's twice the size.
Yep.
When Screamage and Turn went into the charts and Troublegum went into the charts, they booked it and it sold out. And I remember, thankfully, because I would have got really nervous, we were so busy. I think we had time to rock up to it. And then we had to spend an extra time sound checking because of all the cameras.
Yep.
And then after that, because it was during the Troublegum time, there was loads of press. We did press after the sound check. And then we had about an hour and a half before the gig to ourselves, which I think was really good because we didn't have to overthink it. So all we did was go on stage and do what we'd been doing the previous 2 weeks on tour all around Europe. So.
That was interesting because, and it's one of the reasons, I mean, I'm obviously a huge Metallica fan. You know, Kill 'Em All, 83, day one I was there. Like a big fan, and Ride the Lightning's one of my favourite albums. So it was really nice to see that they're very invested in what they do. You know, we were It's quite surreal when I think about it now, but we got an invite to go and meet Lars. He was in Paris, and we were over there doing press, and we were invited to come and meet him which is quite cool. He said he just wanted to meet the band and see what the crack is, if we were going to be doing this festival. So we went to see Slash's Snake.
Right, okay.
So Lars wasn't with Metallica or playing. He was just over in Paris, but he was coming to this gig. So we met him in the Elise Montmartre venue upstairs, promoter's office. And we just had a beer and a chat, and he was really nice. And it was, obviously, you just do what you do. And then a few weeks later, it was like, it's all going ahead. The festival's happening. So it was really good. And they were really, really nice. The crew were great. There was one, we wanted to use The Boys Are Back in Town.
Right,
as our
okay.
intro for the set, and literally, I'd say 5 minutes before we go on stage, Metallica's production manager comes running into our dressing room and goes, Metallica want to use The Boys Are Back in Town. We just heard that you're going to use it. It would be brilliant if you didn't use it. And we were like, yeah, of course. Because I think Metallica, they hadn't played in so long, and they thought it would be an app type thing. So, they were really, really respectful, really nice crew. And I think, they treated us really well. We went to see them a couple of times. They had like a thing a couple of days before where they played the LA2. LA2.
I think they done a secret gig for somewhere in London, and I think the same set list or a similar set list that they done on stage at Donington.
Right, yes, because I think we went to that, and then they had like a party afterwards. So we'd met them all, by that stage, and they're really, I thought, really nice guys, and especially to be of that size, very involved in what a lot of bands would consider minor details. You can tell there's a real attention to detail, and it was great. It was a funny day because we played quite a lot of new songs, and so I was kind of nervous about that, and it was kind of a big thing, but it was good. I quite enjoyed it in the end.
Yeah. Well, the offer, I don't know if Michael told you this story. Lars kind of liked Trouble, but he didn't know the band.
Yeah. He
So-
says that he's met in Paris.
That's right, yeah. So we were flown over to Paris and we met him. And I was more nervous about meeting James Hetfield because a guitar player, I absolutely, his style was, when you've listened to Trouble, you know how much his style influenced me.
Yeah.
But they were really good because they were doing a gig, I think it was in Heaven in London as a warm-up for the gig. And so we went and met him in Paris, and we had a beer with him.
Yeah.
And then we sort of Slash Snake Pit were playing. Got home the next day, says, yeah, Lars really likes you and Mike, and you've got the gig.
Yep.
And that was fine. And then they said, oh, you've been invited. They're doing a warm-up gig. So we went to see them in Heaven, and afterwards we sort of went to the after show, got to meet all of them. They were all really, really sweet. I remember Kirk Hammett. I was wearing a pair of, the whole Infernal Love thing. I'd gone for the sort of almost teddy boy look with a quiff.
Yeah.
I was wearing these bizarre crocodile skin loafers. I know exactly, which he'd bought in a shop in London.
Yep.
And Kirk was really taken by them.
Right.
And he kept going, hey man, where'd you get your shoes and all that? So I gave him the name of the shop, and then he gave me his phone number, and I gave him my phone number. Never called him because I was so shy. And years ago, whenever I've moved house 2 or 3 times, I opened a CD and Kirk Hammett's phone number on the CD. I just think, wow. But yeah, no, I remember them being really, really good. And then I remember the day of the gig, I didn't enjoy it as much because we'd done Donington the year before, and we were way down the bill, and I really enjoyed it. And this year, I remember we were second from top because Infernal Love and Trouble Gum had both been in the top 10. That's why we were there.
Were you not after Slayer?
Yes, but I love Slayer, but Slayer didn't like the fact that we were on after them. And Kerry King was very vocal about it. And I don't know if Michael told you about meeting him a few years later. So Michael bumped into him a few years later. So when we got there, our agent was in our dressing room on the Metallica show going, everyone's complaining, they say, why are therapy so high up the bill? And I'm having to go, well, if they've had a couple of top 10 albums, that's...
Yep.
He says, yeah, but they're not as heavy as Slayer and all this kind of stuff. Kerry King wasn't pleased. And a few years ago, we played one of the big 4 gigs in the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
and Michael bumped into Kerry King, and he knew Michael loves heavy metal. I think he went over, he had a copy of Rain and Blood to get Kerry to sign. And I think he went over and said, it's Michael from Therapy. He said, oh, yeah, I remember you guys. Yeah. Yeah, it's Show 95. Says, someone got the billing right today. Because we were second daughters. Yeah. So that put me off a little bit. And then we went on stage and they have the snake pit.
Right.
And I remember Crusher was introducing us, and there was a handful of probably about 20 people shouting Therapy or shit. Because they were obviously there to see Metallica.
Right.
And that wound me up. And then when we went on stage, because I was expecting it to be the year before. The year before, we were on the main stage, and at the end of the show, every set of hands was in the air. And this one was a bit more difficult. So I didn't enjoy the show. We played really well, but I just felt a bit like it was a Metallica gig, not Castle Donington. And we were maybe with a cello on stage. I was dressed like a teddy boy. It was a bridge too far for a lot of people to kind of warm to.
Let's say that he was nervous because you were also playing a lot of new songs.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's what we always used to do. I mean, most other bands would have probably put 3 new songs in and played most of Troublegum. But afterwards, I mean, I must admit, I was really nervous. And afterwards, they had an after show at Cinderella's in Birmingham, a rock club, and we got the invite. Yep. And they were all really sweet. All of them were there. All of them took time to talk to all of us. Yep. So, I mean, I love, as I say, I was never really that big a metal fan, but Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets really changed the way I played guitar, because I'm not into lead guitar, but I love the way Hetfield played. And I'll always have that. And I won't have a bad word said about Metallica, because even though the fans didn't warm to us that day, they were brilliant.
It wasn't entirely unexpected. I mean, we had, I knew that his heart maybe wasn't in it anymore. And he just didn't seem to be as excited about any of it,
Was it one of those things that it just happens?
Yeah. I think it maybe wasn't what he expected, but then again, I don't know what he expected. I wasn't that friendly with him at school before we kind of were in the band. We knew of each other because we played in bands and stuff, and they were in the band together. But you're right. I mean, it's incredible that the two of us and Andy from Ballyclare, which is just up the road from East Antrim, managed to put a band together and in 5 years. Get to that level. It's absolutely insane. And I think it's an awful pity, because when he was in form, he was a really brilliant drummer and good fun. But at that stage, he wasn't on form. So it became hard to, me and Andy are in the rehearsal room going, right, is it going to show or not? You know what I mean? There was a lot of things like that went on, and it obviously was that he didn't really like doing it, which is a real pity. So I kind of feel for him, and he obviously felt he had to step away from it.
Well, I mean, it was sad to see. The saddest thing for me was because me and Fyfe started the band. We were the two people started it, and unfortunately, from about 1993 to that time when he left, our relationship had begun to unravel. Because we're two different people. I'm a bit of a grafter. I like to get stuff done. And Fyfe doesn't. And I think also he didn't like touring. And that's not a criticism. He really, really did not like touring. And I loved it. I absolutely love visiting different countries, meeting it. And I love playing live, which Fyfe didn't enjoy either. So it got to the point where a band like Therapy that was touring the world, the Troublegum tour, we did 3 world tours in a year. We were all over the place. We had 2 weeks off at Christmas. We were back in the studio recording Infernal Love. And then when the Infernal Love album was finished, we didn't go home. We get picked up at the studio and taken on tour. So it was just like, by the end, it was, me and Micah were going, well, this can't go on, because what's going on here? It's either he has to go or we didn't know what we were going to do. Yeah. Whenever he phoned me up and said he was leaving the band, it wasn't unexpected, because at that point in time, me and Mike were going, well, what do we do? Because it got to the point where the atmosphere was toxic, and it wasn't toxic in a way. We didn't physically fight or give each other abuse. It was the worst kind, because that would clear the air. It was passive aggressive. So none of us ever said anything to everybody else about what was winding each other up, and it just got to a head. And I think that was, at that point in time, I've no problems, with Fyfe having left the band, because to be honest, for his mental health, it was the best thing he could have done.
Yeah.
I think at that point in time, as I said earlier, we should have taken about 6 months off, apart from me and Michael's mental health. Yeah.
I went down to a gig at the Garage, rival schools gig, and just bumped into Andy at the bar. And
have you kept in touch with the guys?
You know what?
Having known,
not really, no. And over all the years, we've been looking at things where Andy sent there was a review, like a therapy review, and there's like a guerrilla review, and then I know Cable played at Reading when I think Therapy played it. There was all these almost like points where we just didn't stay. And it's not like today, it's not like you can just like ping someone a message on Instagram. It's back in the day, it was very different. So we were just chatting at the bar, and I'll be straight. I'd had a few beers, and he was saying, we're looking for a drummer, and then it was like I got a call the following day, and through mutual friends we kind of hooked up and went and did a gig. The first gig was like in Portugal. So what it was very, very kind of like, he was like, let's go and do a gig and see how. Obviously the lads knew I could play, and I obviously knew how great the band were. So it's like, let's go and see how we get on. So, but what was funny was it was like this whole thing where we had a rehearsal, and it was meant to be 2 days rehearsals. So that was the thing, 16 songs headlining this festival, 2 days rehearsals. And then as it got closer and closer, the 2 days became 1 day, and then the 1 day became an afternoon, and then eventually it was just like one run through of the 16 songs, and then we were off. I was like, no.
Well, it was rival schools in Islington.
Right.
I just moved. I mean, I'd lived in Ireland all my life, and I just moved to East Anglia on the outskirts of Cambridge, because I got married in 97, and my wife had come over to Ireland. And then when we had our son, she didn't want her son really. I was always on tour. She didn't know anyone, so she wanted to move back to East Anglia so that she's got lots of friends around with her, and I'm to her, understandably. And we were back about 4 or 5 months, and Graham Hopkins had left the band.
Yep.
And we were kind of going to go down the road of, we'd planned to have 2 or 3 days of auditions. Like we did whenever Fyfe left the band, we had auditions, and our management was on. And I was to be honest, I was at the bit where I thought, it didn't really work out with Graham, and it ended a bit messy, and it made me a bit cross. And can I be bothered going through this again? I said to Mike was going, I'll be great. I'll be grand. Come on. So my wife was there, and I was going, I'll fancy going to see a gig. It's rival schools. And she went, I've never heard of them. And she went, well, you're a bit down the dumps. I'll drive you down. Well, I'll drive you, give a few beers, you know what I mean? Because normally I would have driven myself down or got the train. Yeah. So we drive down to rivals, and I'm standing at the bar, and all of a sudden Neil's there, and I haven't seen him since, I think in 1994, he came to one of the Troublegum shows, and that was the last time I'd seen him. And he said, whenever Fyfe left, I wanted to audition, but I didn't know if you'd remember me or have me in the band. But he said, I'm not in Cable anymore, and if you give me a chance. So, I mean, to be honest, he was one of our favourite ever drummers. He was
living outside London at the time, and he went in to see that Rival Schools. Great band. He went to the gig and he bumped into Neil, and then the next day he rang me and goes, you are never going to believe who I bumped into. And I was going, Neil Cooper, no way, wow, God. And we obviously had been in touch a little bit since we did the tour, but we weren't in regular contact, for example. I was like, wow, he was an amazing drummer, that's incredible. And Andy goes, well, what do you think? And I thought, perfect, similar age, mentality, set of influences. We always got on really well, and
I know exactly what I'd phone Michael, right? Because he's so bloody organised. He's the organizer. So, absolutely 100%. Yeah, Michael he'd be there with. He'd have the whole dug. He'd have the bag of lime. We'd be sorted.
Question asked, is Neil the one you're asking?
I'm driving to his house there and then. Don't even need to ring him.
I don't know what that says about Neil, that automatically you just said Neil, but enough. Automatically Neil said yourself.
Yeah, there's dirty deeds being done dirt cheap. Neil was on the case.
Neil said to me that he would automatically ring yourself, and the reason being that you would already have the hole dug, you'd have the bags, the masking tape, everything to basically get away with the crime. You would already have it all prepared. I don't know what that says about yourself.
I don't know. See, I'm thinking Neil would know a bloke. Yeah. Neil always knows a bloke.
The guy.
He might not get his hands dirty, but he would know who to refer me on to if that hypothetical ever occurred.
Right, okay.
I would phone Michael because he's the most sanguine out of the lot of us, and Michael McKeegan is the most unflappable person under pressure that I've ever come across. I mean, I sat beside him. We flew to Russia once before the war. We used to play in Russia quite a lot, and we were in a plane that got hit by lightning.
Right,
and Michael just sat completely expressionless. And the two ladies to my right were praying and crossed themselves. Michael was on the left, was totally calm. Yeah. I was having kittens. The plane was bouncing all over the place. And I've seen it in sometimes when I've been in a situation when it looks like it could all kick off. Yeah. And Michael's just been completely stony-faced and calm. So I would say Mr. Michael McKeegan could dispose of the body.